And hey, I haven't introduced myself yet. My name's Addison. It's great to meet you. I get to serve as a volunteer here on the team alongside my beautiful wife, Alex, who you probably already know. Yes, she deserves all the cheers. And we also have a baby girl, a 2.5-year-old little toddler named River, who is honestly too spoiled by all of y'all. But thank you. You all love her so well. But I'm really excited for tonight. I'm very excited. I'm excited. We've got 15 minutes together, okay? So 15 minutes. It's going to be short and sweet. This is a carol service. I'm really excited to be preaching on just the whole Christmas story. I want to take it from a slightly different angle. I think a lot of us, we just read 20 verses about the story of Christmas, the story of the birth of Jesus. And I think a lot of us might be familiar with like the what of Christmas, the journey, Mary and Joseph, the angels. Amazing. Mary and Joseph, the angels, the shepherds, all the things. But I think it's important to ask ourselves the question of like, okay, how often do I actually really think about the birth of Jesus? How much did that actually impact my life? C.S. Lewis has this amazing quote. He says this, he says, Christianity, if false, is of no importance, and if true, of infinite importance. The only thing it cannot be is moderately important. I love that. I think that if we're honest on this carol service, I think we can say we believe in this crazy, miraculous, scandalous story of the birth of Jesus. But if we're honest with ourselves, we kind of live like it's moderately important. We think about it in December, or maybe if you're like my wife and I, we put our tree up in November because that's the right way to do it, November 1st. But if we're honest, we kind of like don't really know why it should impact us. And what I want to do tonight is talk a little bit more about the why the birth of Jesus should actually change us. My daughter right now, she's 2.5, and she's in this, she reached a new milestone. She's in her why phase. So she's always saying like, why? I'll be putting her to bed at night, and I'll be like, okay, baby, it's time to go to bed. And she'll hit me with, but why? And well, she actually says, buck, why? And I'm like, no, it's but. And she goes, bum? And I'm like, no, don't say but say buck. And so I say, and she says, but why? And I say, well, because God made you that way. You're supposed to sleep. And she goes, but why? And so I'm like, okay, just time to go to bed. But I think what we should do tonight with the story of the birth of Jesus is ask that question, why? Why should that actually impact me? And so I love John's account because John actually dives into really the why of Christmas. Not just what we should believe, but why we should be changed. So for the next 15 minutes, we're going to focus on one verse. One verse. Does that sound good? One verse. John chapter 1, verse 14. 1 verse 14. And it says this. So the Word became human and made his home among us. He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness. We have seen his glory, the glory of the Father's one and only Son. Are you like me? Do you read your Bible sometimes and you're like, okay, so the Word became human, check. Made his home among us, check. Was full of unfailing love, check. You kind of just like read over some of these things. Like maybe it's you're familiar with it. I love what Levi preached on last week, the familiarity of our faith. Maybe you're familiar with this. Maybe you're kind of just, it's not really making sense until you can read over this. But what this is saying here, by the way, when it says the Word became human, John, earlier on in his gospel, there's 4 gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. He says this, he says the Word was with God and the Word was God. So the Word there means God. He's saying God became human. Like what are we talking about? He made his home among us. I think verses like this should actually make us pause, actually make us think, what does this actually mean for my life? He became human. He stepped into my mess. Just like C.S. Lewis said, he said, if this is true, this should be of infinite importance. And so what I want to do is I want to take this verse, and I think it tells us 3 different things. The Christmas story, God becoming man, the birth of Jesus, I think tells us 3 things about Jesus that really should change everything. The first thing that it tells me this. It tells me that Jesus didn't just come to get us into heaven, but he came to bring heaven to us. The verse says, the Word became flesh. God became human. he came down. He stepped into the world that he created. This is like God, the star breather who spoke and creation just appeared. He stepped into the world he created. This tells me that he doesn't just care about securing your eternal future in heaven someday, but he actually also cares about bringing heaven into your current reality here and now. And don't hear what I'm not saying, by the way. I'm not trying to minimize eternity, because if I'm honest, I actually think eternity matters more than our present time here on this earth. Every single week, we close out our service with the unity prayer that says, help us to value your eternal things over earthly things, your eternal kingdom over earthly things. I need that prayer. I believe that prayer. I think all of us should need to say that prayer to put things into perspective. But what happens is the birth of Jesus brought his kingdom to earth, brought his eternal kingdom that we should be valuing into earth. Here's our problem. I think we actually prefer a compartmentalized faith. A compartmentalized faith. What I mean by that is I think if we're honest here in this Christmas carol service, I think if we were honest with ourselves, a lot of the times we actually reduce our faith down to, okay, I believe in God so I can go to heaven someday. You see how backwards that is a little bit. It says, he came down, yet our faith so often is centered around us going up. He arrived, but yet we so often are consumed with leaving, going to spend eternity in heaven. I think we're just missing part of the point. And by the way, here's how compartmentalized faith actually shows up in our day-to-day. It looks like this. We say, okay, God, you can have my Sunday, but my Monday through Saturday, my daily decisions, my career, my future plans, those are things that, I'm going to keep close to my chest. If we're honest, it sounds like this. It's like, okay, I know that I believe that Jesus says, my peace I leave to you, my peace I give to you. I believe that there's a supernatural peace that I can have. But when my toddler is crashing out at night, what I do, I don't know about you, but what I do is I actually just reduce my emotional maturity down to her level, and I also crash out. Instead of actually accepting and receiving this peace that I say I believe in. You see, we choose to crash out. We choose to give in to the feelings that we have in the moment instead of actually receiving the peace that we say we believe in. We choose to actually hold on to bitterness and resentment towards people who hurt us instead of actually extending the forgiveness that we say we believe we have received. You see, what we're doing is actually, it's like the innkeeper. The innkeeper, the night that Mary and Joseph knocked on the door, we're saying, okay, Jesus, we don't actually have space for you here in this part of my life, but you can have the space out back. You can have the stable. We don't have space for you to actually have me give forgiveness here in this area, but you can hold on to maybe my theology or these things I believe about eternity. No. What we're trying to do is we do this with our theology so that way we don't have to put into practice the things that we say we believe in. We need to remember that God became human, that God put on flesh and bone without actually ceasing to be God, by the way. He chose to do this. He went to great lengths to bring heaven to you and I. He actually experienced humanity so you and I could experience heaven. He has real peace for you right now, real hope for you right now, here and now. He has real joy for you right now. So the first thing it tells us that he's not just focused on your eternity, but he actually wants to bring heaven into your current reality. The second thing that this story tells me, the birth of Jesus tells me that he's not just waiting to be pursued. He is the one pursuing us. John 1:14, it says that he made his home among us. He made his home among us. He moved towards us. He made the first move. He is the one who initiated. You know that word for made his home among us that John uses, it's actually, he tabernacled among us is what it can literally be translated to. And if you're like, okay, what does that mean? We don't have to get too much into it. But the tabernacle in the Old Testament was God's temporary method for his people to experience his presence. His temporary method. It was real presence, but it was limited access. There was sacrifices, there was rituals, there was layers to actually get into the access of his presence. And you see, this old tabernacle was always pointing to a future tabernacle, a new tabernacle that was to come. And that person, John is saying, he's saying, that day has come. That day is today, the birth of Jesus. He is the new tabernacle. He is this full presence with all of those limitations completely removed for the world. His presence is a gift to you and to me. Our problem, I think, is that we actually prefer a striving relationship. I think we actually do. It might sound backwards, but I think what it actually is we prefer a relationship that is ritualistic. We prefer a relationship that is like this tabernacle where we're having to do things to get God. And you know why? I think it's a way for us to control God. If I'm being honest, that's what it's been for me. It's a way for us to actually say, okay, I want to be able to control the outputs. So I'm going to control the inputs so that I can control the outputs. It's a way for us to actually try and say we are doing all of the right things, but we're not actually surrendering control. If you think about it, like if I checked off all the boxes in my marriage, if I bought Alex gifts every single day, if I told her how beautiful she was, if I did all the cleaning in the house every single day, if we did a weekly date night, if we did all the things, but if I never actually told her what I was thinking about, what I was feeling, the struggles I have, the fears that I have, my desires for the future, I would actually be robbing her of intimacy in our marriage. You can do all of the things, but without actually offering up control, you're actually robbing yourself of intimacy. You see, we prefer a striving relationship, and we strive so that way we can avoid intimacy. We do it because it's safe. What we forget is that God in Scripture is defined as a good shepherd who chases after the lost sheep, a good father who runs toward the son who completely betrayed him. That is our God. Christmas, the birth of Jesus, it is that pursuit personified in the person of Jesus. Christmas is the story of humanity's upward climb being interrupted by a God who climbed down. A God who climbed down to actually provide the answer, the antidote, and the solution to our climb himself. He is the answer. He is the solution. So the birth of Jesus tells us that he brought heaven to earth. He pursues us. And finally, it says this to me. It says, Jesus is not safe, but he is God. Jesus is not safe, but he is good. Sorry. John 1:14 says, he's full of unfailing love and faithfulness. Unfailing love and faithfulness. I love how John uses love and faithfulness. These are like the least safe attributes you could ever use. It's exposing. What it's doing is you're actually banking on the fact that somebody else would uphold their end of the deal as well. You're extending love and extending faithfulness, knowing that somebody could actually let you down. But he's unfailing in his love and in his faithfulness. If he wanted to be safe, by the way, why send a baby? Babies are like the least safe thing in the entire world. If you would have seen me when River was first born, just like checking to make sure she was still breathing, she was still alive, it's embarrassing. I looked like a crazy helicopter parent. But the reality is kids are not safe. The bruises they get, I'm constantly thinking about just like making sure she doesn't trip and fall. But God chose to send a baby. Why? I think he knew the risk, but the reward, relationship with you and with me was worth the risk. He's not safe, but he's good. He's not safe, but he's good. He would eventually actually give up his life for you and for me on a cross. He's not safe, but he is full of unfailing love and faithfulness. From the cradle to the cross, you were on his mind. You were on his mind. He's full of unfailing love and faithfulness. You know, Alex and I, we moved to a new apartment 3 days before our daughter was born. Don't recommend that whatsoever. When you move into a new place, you're trying to like get all the things together. We had to buy a new couch. We chose a white one right before having a toddler running around. Also don't recommend that. But that's what we chose. And when you first get like a new thing, there's like the first rule is like, okay, no eating on the couch. Then a little bit of time goes by and you're like, okay, you can eat on the couch, but just be really careful. And so you're like trying so hard to like I'm eating like chocolate like over the edge so it doesn't fall on the seat, like just trying to be really careful. And then you get a couple stains on it and you're kind of just like eventually a couple months in like, it is what it is, But what we do is we bleach it, we wash it, we try and do all the things, but to be honest, it really doesn't do that much. And so what we've done is we just kind of like set it up in a vibe where like we don't turn on the overhead lights because overhead lights are not a vibe. And we kind of just set up like some dim lighting. So you can't like really see the stains, but they're still there. The problem right now is River, she's in this phase where she is touching everything. And so she's like always wanting to turn on the overhead lights. And so she'll turn it on, and every single time, the first thing I look at is that freaking couch. I'm like, man, I forgot about that stain. I forgot about that spot. It's just like this mess that we've like kind of learned to live with a little bit. See, the light, it's exposing. The light is actually not the problem. It didn't create the mess, but it reveals the mess. It exposes the mess. What I'm getting at is Jesus is called the light of the world. The light of the world. I think a problem with you and with me is that we like to keep the lights off. We like to keep him at arm's length. We try and compartmentalize our faith. We try and control our relationship through striving so we don't actually have to let him all the way in because it feels safer. The reality is Jesus isn't safe. It can feel exposing sometimes. It can feel convicting at times, especially we were just singing about a holy God. When we sing about a holy God, we're reminded of the fact that we are not holy, and that feels exposing. But we forget that he's good. He's full of unfailing love, unfailing faithfulness. And the problem is when we keep him at arm's length, when we only allow him partially in, we only receive partial freedom. We only receive partial life, partial healing. But can I tell you today, Jesus didn't come to offer you partial life. He came to offer you life and life abundantly. Abundant life. That's what's available to you and to me. And I think right now, in the same way that Mary and Joseph were knocking on the door of the innkeeper, the Bible says that Jesus stands at the door and he knocks. He stands at the door and he knocks. Will you make room for him? Will you open up your entire life to him? Will you submit every single part of your life to his authority? Because he's good. Because he actually wants to bring heaven into your current reality. He is pursuing you, and he's full of unfailing love and unfailing faithfulness.